In today's episode, we are joined by Emily Quinn, who is a licensed, board-certified genetic counselor who joined the KGI faculty earlier this year to help build the Master of Science in Human Genetics and Genetic Counseling program. Prior to coming to KGI, Emily served as a clinical genetic counselor at the St Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. Emily, can you start off by telling us how you first became interested in working at KGI?
Well, my ultimate career goal has always been to be in genetic counseling program leadership. I'm especially passionate about education, and while I will always value and cherish the interactions I had with my families I met during my clinical practice, my role as Associate Program Director enables me to catalyze growth and progression in our continuously evolving genetic counseling field. This ultimately has a far greater impact on patient care than anything I could ever do in my individual patient interactions. I was particularly drawn to KGI because this institution has a very clear mission to promote innovation through less traditional education approaches, such as flipped classroom environments. I really appreciate the forward-thinking culture of KGI, and I'm confident that we are an institution that is training not just students, but leaders.
To backtrack a bit, previous to arriving at KGI, you were at St Jude. Can you describe what part or parts of that experience were most impactful to you?
Absolutely. The patient interactions I had, hands down, were the most impactful. When families experience a diagnosis of childhood cancer, it's absolutely devastating. And I had the privilege of meeting families during a time of really great vulnerability and was in the position to provide them with knowledge so they could better understand whether cancer was something that may run in their family. And if the answer was yes, empower them with knowledge so they could be more proactive in the care for both the child as well as their larger family.
And now in your current role at KGI, what does that entail?
In my role as Associate Program Director, I have the pleasure of developing and teaching core genetic counseling curriculum, most notably the Genetic Counseling Fundamental courses, which are aptly named Genetic Counseling 1 and Genetic Counseling 2. I get to teach these alongside our phenomenal program director, who comes to KGI also with a wealth of clinical as well as educator experience, and she's been an incredible mentor for me through this process. I also oversee all of the students' thesis projects, where students design and administer their own research studies throughout the course of the 2-year program. This process begins in fall semester of year 1 and ultimately culminates with each student sharing their findings at the end of the program through both a written manuscript and an oral presentation.
Can you talk a bit about Genetic Counselor Awareness Day and some of the feedback you received from the KGI events on November 8th?
Yes. Genetic Counselor Awareness Day is a national effort to raise awareness and interest about the roles genetic counselors play in a variety of clinical settings, which include healthcare, industry, and research. This year, on the day before Genetic Counselor Awareness Day, our genetic counseling students, faculty, and admissions personnel did outreach at a local high school where we got to lead students through a fun and interactive strawberry DNA extraction activity. Then, on the actual day of Genetic Counselor Awareness Day, we held an informational booth about genetic counseling and our new Genetic Counseling Master's program. At our booth, we got to engage with many members of the larger KGI student body, staff, and faculty, and talk with them about the many ways genetic counselors contribute to healthcare and research. Both events were huge successes. The high school students especially loved the opportunity to have a real hands-on activity and learn that science can be fun. I know there were several students who particularly leveraged the opportunity to talk with us about career possibilities, and there were students that were actually interested in genetic counseling. The thing is, most genetic counselors will share they didn't learn about genetic counseling until they were either in college or after college. This makes doing early outreach at places like high schools especially important and particularly rewarding.
Now that you've gotten to know the KGI students in these first few months, what are some of the most impressive qualities of our students here?
KGI welcomed 14 truly brilliant genetic counseling students this year. It takes a very special type of student to be willing to be part of an inaugural cohort. These students are just as important as faculty and staff in shaping this new program. Our students have an abundance of impressive qualities. One that I'm particularly in awe of is their strong sense of cohesion and community building. This is a group that has commitment to success not just for themselves, but to their fellow classmates as well. I'm also impressed with their enthusiasm for promoting our program, both internally at KGI as well as externally. They're incredibly effective at using forums such as blogs and social media to get the word out about our new program. Our students also have a variety of really rich life experiences and opinions. I honestly feel like I learn just as much from our students as they do from me. There's no question that we are truly in this journey of creating the culture of our new program together.
And as we wind down, what is something you're involved with outside of KGI that may surprise people, whether hobby, activity, organization?
Well, I don't know that I would consider this a surprising thing about me, but I am a big fan of hiking, camping, really overall just being out in nature. Although I have lived in large cities such as San Francisco and New York for most of my adult life, I have rural childhood roots. Growing up, I lived in a small town outside Yosemite, so very early on, I developed a really deep appreciation for the great outdoors. This is my first time living back in California in over 6 years, and I'm really excited to get back to exploring and adventuring this amazingly beautiful state.
Before we let you go, I wanted to ask on behalf of any prospective students out there who are listening, what organizations or resources do you feel like they could refer to as they gain experience to be able to apply and excel in this profession?
That's a great question, because in addition to looking for students who have the academic preparedness for the rigor of our program, we also really value students who come with other experience that are relevant to the empathy that they need if they're going to be in direct patient care. I advise students to consider volunteering at a crisis center to get some of these experiences, or another thing they consider is doing work with an advocacy group.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Emily. And for those that are interested in reaching out, they can obviously go to our website, kgi.edu/msgc, to learn more about genetic counseling programs specifically. And on the staff directory, faculty and staff directory, they'll find your contact information as well. So thanks again, Emily.